Hey guys, welcome to the City Who Never Sleeps. I'm Christian Forte and I'll mainly be covering politics for you guys on this channel. If you like my video, please like or subscribe to my channel. So today I want to cover the ongoing coronavirus pandemic and provide you guys an update on the magnitude of the public health, economic, and political crisis as things currently stand today. So as of yesterday morning, the New York Times was reporting in the United States 141,995 cases and 2,486 deaths. CNBC was reporting 66,487 cases in New York State and 33,400 cases, about half of those cases in New York City in the five boroughs. Unbelievable. That's almost a quarter of the cases in the country. At least 1,218 deaths across New York State. And then in the world, there's 729,100 cases and 34,689 deaths. Now, that's as of yesterday morning. So I can't even imagine what the numbers are at right now. This thing is obviously exponential. The numbers are drastically rising every single day. Now, that being said, I wanted to cover the ways that this is particularly impacting in the United States. I think it's been exposing the degree to which some key vulnerabilities in our really market-centric economy, ability to respond to this adequately. So if you look at our healthcare system, for example, our hospitals are completely overrun with space. They don't have the capacity to be able to accommodate the influx of cases with rooms or beds. Our medical professionals, very unfortunately, don't have important personal protective gear that they need, like masks, gowns, scrubs, not even ventilators for patients with coronavirus. Obviously, it's a respiratory infection. They need ventilators. They also need testing kits, right? You need to be able to get tested to know if you have the coronavirus. We don't have enough testing kits. And what that means is that all the numbers that we're seeing reported right now are actually gross underestimates, right? Because unless we test people, we don't know how many people have it. We can't know that unless we get our production of testing kits up to speed. Now, the president did recently invoke the Defense Production Act, which basically compelled General Motors and Ford automobile companies to start producing testing kits and ventilators. But until such time as they're able to get these things up to scale with the rising demand, chances are we really won't know for some time just how many cases there actually are. I know that New York State is not expected to actually hit its apex of cases at least for another 14 to 21 days, which is ugly to think about because New York State is currently at rock bottom. It's at the epicenter of the national crisis. So to think that this is actually going to get much worse before it gets better, just devastating. That being said, our hospitals have rightfully made this a priority. They've pushed aside all elective surgeries and outsourced all of those procedures to areas outside of hospitals. So temporary hospitals, New York State, for example, has basically made the Jacob Javits Center or the Westchester Convention Center and some bunch of college campuses some temporary hospital zones for non-coronavirus related cases so that our hospitals can prioritize this pandemic, this influx of cases as they arrive. So hospitals are basically not making money attending to the needs of coronavirus patients because their business model apparently depends on these really rich elective surgeries that obviously are very expensive relative to coronavirus and other kinds of healthcare. So that in itself is obviously a glaring flaw that needs to be addressed. That's being revealed right now, and that's that hospitals are not making money actually attending to sick people. Taking care of sick people is not, it's not propping up their business, which is weird because it really seems like that's where the focus on their business should be. So obvious defect and shortcoming of our system, as well as the fact that, again, if you're someone who doesn't have health insurance, you are probably going to suffer an economic toll for treatment, just as you would if you had a heart attack or a stroke or cancer or any other care in this country, because we don't have Medicare for all, which, not to beat a dead horse, is obviously really critical, whether you have coronavirus or not. Now, we did recently make coronavirus testing free, but what good is it to know, to find out that you have something for free and then, have to go and get care that you can't pay for? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So it really seems, especially with the rising number of people unemployed, right? So a lot of people in this country, you got to remember, get their health care through their employer. And as more employers are laying people off, as the economy continues to shutter, you're seeing more people out of healthcare by the end of this month, meaning more people don't have insurance, meaning they can't afford to pay for their healthcare. And we already know that in this country, we have 45,000 people that die every year because they don't have healthcare, and then 500,000 people who, about a third of all bankruptcies, 500,000 bankruptcies due to not having insurance and going to the emergency room. So all problems that really are now being pushed to the forefront during the shockwave that this crisis is presenting our economy with. So speaking of unemployment, you may have heard that claims recently went through the roof and reached historic levels. So there were 3.3 million unemployment claims throughout the country. I believe this was 2 weeks ago. That's, I believe, a record, or tied for a record. It's far outpaced anything that we saw during the height of the Great Recession 12 years ago, during which time unemployment peaked at only 10%, which is peanuts compared to what we're looking down at right now. We're honestly on pace to reach 30%, even 40% unemployment, which would be just historic. So to put that in perspective, we hit 24.9% unemployment at the height of the Great Depression, which was our greatest economic crisis. So this is on pace to dwarf Great Depression numbers. So as more and more people are out of work, obviously it becomes more and more important that the government take care of them and that they be made whole. And to that end, the federal government has responded. There's been some good, but it's been mostly mixed results, to be quite honest with you. So there are checks, as you may have heard. Everyone below $75,000 income is going to be getting a check for $1,200. So families will be getting that times two, $2,400 plus $500 for every kid in the household. Now that's good, but obviously the single check is not nearly good enough. It should be a monthly check, which it currently is not. And obviously it shouldn't be means tested. It's ridiculous that you would take the time necessary to try and test to determine, well, who's eligible for something, when you could just simply make this thing universal and then tax the wealthy back later. If your concern is you don't want to tax, you don't want to give away a handout to the wealthy, you can just simply tax them later on. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense that you would hold up the, rent is due tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's April 1st. So it doesn't make sense that you would sort of hold up this handout for people that really need it. Obviously, working people who are scrambling to be able to pay rent and bills, everything that's due right around the corner, just to sort of, have this like really weird self-righteousness or moral tone against, giving, helping the wealthy people, which, by the way, you can just tax them back later. Like, I don't understand how that's, but anyway, you get the $1,200 check, and then you're also going to get beefed up unemployment. So unemployment is being extended for an extra 4 months plus $600. So thank you, Bernie Sanders, for that. So unemployment is getting beefed up, but as far as like rent, there should obviously be a moratorium on rent, the way there's being one for mortgages. So if you're a homeowner and you have your mortgage through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, federally backed mortgage, you do get some reprieve. You don't have to pay your mortgage for 6 months, and there's going to be a stop on foreclosures, so you can't be foreclosed on. If you're a renter, yeah, you can't be evicted, but there's nothing in the way of a moratorium for renters. Now, if you're in a single family household or a multi-family building and you're your mortgage is through again Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, then you won't get evicted. But there's nothing, the same protection that applies to homeowners is just not there for renters. So that's obviously a problem that needs to be addressed. Student loan, student lendees, they're getting some relief. They do not have to pay any of their loans for the next 6 months from April through September, although interest will accrue, but obviously still a huge deal. That's good. But all in all, to be honest with you, it really looks like the biggest winners are the corporations and the big businesses and the multinational companies. Now, why do I say that? Because basically they're getting bailouts. So the industries, the airline industry is getting $58 billion. The hospital industry, as I said, is getting $100 billion because, they need to be made whole for not being able to make money off of attending to newly sick people. Boeing, industry companies that are deemed as essential to national security, like Boeing, there's apparently $17 billion that are allotted for these companies. Obviously, Boeing comes to mind. It's not yet clear if that money is going to go to Boeing. Boeing's CEO is sort of indicating that no, we don't really need this money. It's all good. But, they are getting sort of every invitation to sort of take the money and run, the way they did in following the fallout from the 2008 financial crisis, while homeowners get, while small businesses, get basically $377 billion fund, and that's to cover the cost of payroll. So as long as you back up your employees, you get your loan forgiven if you're a small business owner. Now compare that to large businesses, which are getting I think it's 450 or 449 billion, something like that, which can be leveraged 10 to 1 by the Fed for a grand total of something like $4.4 trillion, and they don't have to back up their employees. So they're like basically no strings attached to the bailout that they're getting. There are some sort of weak tea, measures that basically ban buybacks for like the life of the loan and a year after the loan. So for like 2 years, but you can request a special waiver from the Treasury, which at the Treasury's discretion, they can give you. So basically no ban on stock buybacks. There's no real mandate that you have to retain your employees, which is really bizarre. Especially given the double standard again for small businesses, who, by the way, are getting their loans dispersed to them through the Small Business Administration, which is apparently one of the most feckless and inefficient companies in the federal or agencies in the federal government. So a bit of a double standard in the way small businesses and workers are being treated relative to the way that the large corporations and multinational corporations and big businesses are being treated. They're sort of being lavished with sort of these golden parachutes. Now I'm hearing, they can't lay off their employees until September the 30th at more than 10%. Wow. United Airlines and Delta literally put out statements literally the next day after the news came out saying, we regret to inform our employees that very unfortunately looks very likely that after September 30th, we may have to reduce radically the size of our workforce. It's like ridiculous. I mean, it's because you don't force them to do anything. You don't hold their feet to the fire. Look at Boeing. Following the financial crisis of 2008, we gave, during the Trump era tax cuts. So in 2017, they were one of the worst offenders, Boeing was, in terms of taking all the money from the tax cut and basically using it to pay their executives and buy back their own stocks. So a lot of the stuff that these companies did either after the crisis of 2008 or following the Trump tax cuts of a few years ago led to their being in this really vulnerable financial position that they're in right now. So to just turn around and just sort of give them the farm again and just, prioritize them over working people and small businesses and renters, that doesn't really make sense. There is some good stuff in here. Again, I don't want to I don't want to downplay that too much in the interest of fairness. But the fact is that the big guys at the top, the capitalist class, are basically coming out the big winners here once again. I do want to mention that if you're a gig worker, so if you're an independent contractor or a freelancer, you know, like an Uber or Lyft driver or a hospitality professional, you are eligible for unemployment as if you were employed regularly. So 1099 are being taken care of. They're getting their unemployment insurance plus $600, which once again, thank you, Senator Sanders. That was something that Bernie made sure was included in the latest bill. That being said, it looks like very likely the way things are headed right now, we're very likely to come out of this with a situation where we see more of the kinds of consolidation that we saw following the 2008 financial crisis, where the large companies come out the winners and buy out the small companies as they can't afford to stay in business and they go under. And I'm seeing some really, really doomsday scenarios where we end up with a market where there's only like 3 major retailers. You know, Amazon's obviously going to be all right, Walmart, etc. But if a lot of small businesses who are, again, are basically getting money that they need to use to back up their employees, but not being able to have enough revenue to be able to, for example, pay rent, you know, which means that then, you know, they go a month or 2 months without paying rent maybe, and then that rent accrues. So, you know, it's not like they're just going to get a waiver on paying their rent because their landlord's got to make money too. So what does that happen? They go broke, right? So you're seeing sort of where our priorities are in our really sort of market obsessed model of economy. And but all in all, yeah, I just wanted to give you guys that latest update on what's going on, and I'll be doing a lot more of these videos for you guys to help you know exactly what's going on.